Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Daisy, your hostess. I will be exploring a whole new thing here in this next book that I'm going to be reading. Hopefully you're going to enjoy it. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. And to all of you who have subscribed, thank you so much for coming along with me on this journey. And, let's put on our exploration hats. And I like the fact that many of you are just sitting there with your, what's it call it? I call it your traveler's gear. And knowing that at any time, you could just return back to your life. But hopefully we give you something here to think and to contemplate. Or if anything, just to disconnect from your normal stresses of life. So this book titled The Human Aura, Astral Colors and Thought Forms, written by Swami Panchadasi, who was no other than, and we've had several books from him, William Walker Atkinson, also known as Theron Q. Dumont. He was an attorney and businessman who turned to writing and publishing about the occult. He lived between 1862 and 1932. He became highly important at New Thought and a lot of magazines that were written under those other previous pen names. And he wrote over 100 books on religion and psychology. So it'll be interesting, his input on the human aura. So the other books that I have here on the channel, if you get a chance, you should check them out. I thought they were pretty interesting. The Power of Concentration, and also the solar plexus or abdominal brain. He wrote those under the Theron Q. Dumont pen name. And then Thought Vibration or the Law of Attraction was under the William Walker Atkinson. So now going to this, I've always been intrigued about the aura. I have seen the aura. As a matter of fact, my son, when he was, I think he was maybe 5 years old or 6 years old in first grade, he came home one day and he told me, "Mommy, the teacher was surrounded by a black light." Curiosity got the best of me, and I did ask the teacher how she was feeling, and she said that she wasn't feeling well and that she was getting treatment for something. So that was interesting. My son, he is now pursuing his doctorate degree in music, and he told me that he knew a few people that had something called synesthesia, and that's the ability to interpret colors in your taste. Like people can taste the color green or they taste the color red, so I found that really interesting. So whatever they were hearing was being interpreted through their I guess taste glands. Interesting, right? And for some people, they're like, well, could we really see people's colors? I myself can feel people's colors. And at times, depending on the lighting and also the effort that I put into it and how I play with my eyes, whether I close my eyes a little bit or I open them, I could begin to see a field of color or light emanating from the body. But it is a matter of practice. And this book was published in 1912. It is in the public domain. So a lot has progressed since that time. And maybe you've heard the word of bioelectrical field. And that's very popular terminology in our times now, which shows how advanced we are, or some of the breakthrough we have made scientifically in the field of energy and electrical discharge from the body. Even though most of the activity, science has stated that it's coming from the mental activity, there's a lot new findings in this area. There's this article, I'm going to leave the link from Speaking Tree, and the title was The Scientific Evidence of Human Aura. They were sharing many of the scientific findings, especially in that bioelectromagnetic field around the body. And one of the things that they were saying, according to the science, that the presumption of the existence of the aura can be based on the principle, and I like that word, principle, that all mental activity involves electrostatic or electromagnetic energy information exchange. So that's the premise where science is starting from, that they can prove that electromagnetic energy happening through the synapses, but it's not only happening in the brain. We have these chemical neurotransmitters throughout the different parts of our body, and these are electric impulses that have some type of voltage inside the neurons that, sends this information through the nerves, and that's able to, for us, if we think something and within seconds, we are actually doing things. Years ago, I went to this New Age store in Daytona Beach, Florida, and I went there because they have, I don't know if you're familiar with this, it's called Kirlian photography, and it takes a picture of your electric field and it shows all the different colors, and there's different associations to the color with the emotions, and they can identify the condition of your health with that. So I was trying to find it for you so I could post it here in the video, but I couldn't. I moved around so much and I don't have no idea where I filed it. But I tell you what, I do plan on going for a visit, and I guess it's time for a new one because that one was done about 10 years ago. So we'll see about that. But anyway, please do, again, thank you for joining me on this adventure. So if you're ready to explore with me, let's get started with this first chapter. The Human Aura, Astral Colors and Thought Forms by Swami Panchadasi. Chapter 1. What is the human aura? The above question is frequently asked the student of occultism by someone who has heard the term, but who is unfamiliar with its meaning. Simple as the question may seem, it is by no means easy to answer it, plainly and clearly in a few words, unless the hearer already has a general acquaintance with the subject of occult science. Let us commence at the beginning and consider the question from the point of view of the person who has just heard the term for the first time. The dictionaries define the word aura as any subtle, invisible emanation or exhalation. The English authorities, as a rule, attribute the origin of the word to a Latin term meaning air, but the Hindu authorities insist that it had its origin in the Sanskrit root ar, meaning the spoke of a wheel, the significance being perceived when we remember the fact that the human aura radiates from the body of the individual in a manner similar to the radiation of the spokes of a wheel from the hub thereof. The Sanskrit origin of the term is the one preferred by occultists, although it will be seen that the idea of an aerial emanation indicated by the Latin root is not foreign to the real significance of the term. Be the real origin of the term what it may, the idea of the human aura is one upon which all occultists are in full agreement and harmony, and the mention of which is found in all works upon the general subject of occultism. So we shall begin by a consideration of the main conception thereof, as held by all advanced occultists, ancient and modern, omitting little points of theoretical variance between the different schools. Briefly then, the human aura may be described as a fine, ethereal radiation or emanation surrounding each and every living human being. It extends from 2 to 3 feet in all directions from the body. It assumes an oval shape, a great egg-shaped nebula surrounding the body on all sides for a distance of 2 or 3 feet. This aura is sometimes referred to, in ordinary terms, as the psychic atmosphere of a person or as his magnetic atmosphere. This atmosphere or aura is apparent to a large percentage of persons in the sense of the psychic awareness generally called feeling, though the term is not a clear one. The majority of persons are more or less aware of that subtle something about the personality of others which can be sensed or felt in a clear though unusual way when the other persons are nearby, even though they may be out of the range of the vision. Being outside of the ordinary range of the 5 senses, we are apt to feel that there is something queer or uncanny about these feelings of projected personality. but every person, deep in his heart, knows them to be realities and admits their effect upon his impressions regarding the persons from whom they emanate. Even small children, infants even, perceive this influence and respond to it in the matter of likes and dislikes. But human testimony regarding the existence and character of the human aura does not stop with the reports of the psychic senses to which we have just referred. There are many individuals of the race, a far greater percentage than is generally imagined, who have the gift of psychic sight, more or less developed. Many persons have quite a well-developed power of this kind, who do not mention it to their acquaintances for fear of ridicule or of being thought queer. In addition to these persons, there are here and there to be found well-developed, clear-sighted, or truly clairvoyant persons whose powers of psychic perception are as highly developed as are the ordinary senses of the average individual. And the reports of these persons, far apart in time and space though they may be, have always agreed on the main points of psychic phenomena, particularly in regards to the human aura. To the highly developed clairvoyant vision, every human being is seen as surrounded by the egg-shaped aura of 2 or 3 feet in depth, more dense and thick in the portion nearest the body, and then gradually becoming more tenuous, thin, and indistinct as the distance from the body is increased. By the psychic perception, the aura is seen as a luminous cloud, a phosphorescent flame, deep and dense around the center, and then gradually shading into the indistinctness toward the edges. As a matter of fact, as all developed occultists know, the aura really extends very much further than even the best clairvoyant vision can perceive it, and its psychic influence is perceptible at quite a distance in many cases. In this respect, it is like any flame on the physical plane. It gradually fades into indistinctness, its rays persisting far beyond the reach of the vision, as may be proved by means of chemical apparatus, etc. To the highly developed clairvoyant vision, the human aura is seen to be composed of all the colors of the spectrum, the combinations of colors differing in various persons and constantly shifting in the case of every person. These colors reflect the mental, particularly the emotional, states of the person in whose aura they are manifested. Each mental state has its own particular combination formed from the few elementary colors which represent the elementary mental conditions. As the mind is ever shifting and changing its states, it follows that there will ever be a corresponding series of shifting changes in the colors of the human aura. The shades and colors of the aura present an ever-changing kaleidoscope spectacle of wonderful beauty and most interesting character. The trained occultist is able to read the character of any person as well as the nature of his passing thoughts and feelings by simply studying the shifting colors of his aura. To the developed occultist, the mind and character become as an open book, to be studied carefully and intelligently. Even the student of occultism, who has not been able to develop the clairvoyant vision to such a high degree, is soon able to develop the sense of psychic perception, whereby he is able to at least feel the vibrations of the aura, though he may not see the colors, and thus be able to interpret the mental states which have caused them. The principle is, of course, the same, as the colors are but the outward appearance of the vibrations themselves, just as the ordinary colors on the physical plane are merely the outward manifestation of vibration of matter. But it must not be supposed that the human aura is always perceived in the appearance of a luminous cloud of ever-changing color. When we say that such is its characteristic appearance, we mean it in the same sense that we describe the ocean as the calm, deep body of greenish waters. We know, however, that at times The ocean presents no such appearance, but instead is seen as rising in great mountain waves, white-capped and threatening the tiny vessels of men with its power. Or again, we may define the word flame in the sense of a steady, bright stream of burning gas, whereas we know only too well that the word also indicates the great hot tongues of fiery force that stream out from the windows of a burning building and lick to destruction all with which it comes in contact. So it is with the human aura. At times, it may be seen as a beautiful, calm, luminous atmosphere, presenting the appearance of a great opal under the rays of the sun. Again, it blazes like the flames of a great furnace, shooting forth great tongues of fire in this direction and that, rising and falling in great waves of emotional excitement or passion, or perhaps whirling like a great fiery maelstrom toward its center, or swirling in an outward movement away from its center. Again, it may be seen as projecting from its depths smaller bodies or centers of mental vibration, which, like sparks from a furnace, detach themselves from the parent flame and travel far away in other directions. These are the projected thought forms of which all occultists are fond of speaking and which may make plain many strange psychic occurrences. So, it will be seen the human aura is a very important and interesting phase of the personality of every individual. The psychic phase of man is as much the man himself as is the physical phase, the complete being made up of the two phases. Man invisible is as much the real man as man visible. As the finer forms of nature are always the most powerful, so is the psychic man more potent than the physical man. In this book, I speak of the human aura and its colors as being perceived by astral or clairvoyant vision, for this is the way in which it is perceived and studied by the occultist. The occult teaching is that in the evolution of the race, this astral vision will eventually become the common property of every human being. It so exists even now and needs only development to perfect it. But modern physical science is today offering corroboration proof, though the same is not needed by the occultist who has the astral vision, to the general public, of the existence of the human aura. In Europe, especially, a number of scientists have written on the subject of the aura and have described the result of the experiment in which the aura has been perceived and even photographed by means of fluorescent screens, such as are used in taking X-ray photographs, etc. Leading authorities in England, France, and still more recently in Germany have reported the discovery of a nebulous, hazy, radioactive energy or substance around the body of human beings. In short, they now claim that every human being is radioactive and that the auric radiation may be registered and perceived by means of a screen composed of certain fluorescent material interposed between the eye of the observer and the person observed. This aura, so discovered by the scientists, is called by them the human atmosphere and is classified by them as similar to the radiations of other radioactive substances, radium for instance. They have failed to discover color in this atmosphere, however, and know nothing apparently of the relation between auric colors and mental and emotional states, which are so familiar to every advanced occultist. I mention this fact merely as a matter of general interest and information to the student, and not as indicating, even in the slightest degree, any idea on my part that the old occult teaching and the observed phenomena accompanying the same regarding the human aura require any proof or backing up on the part of material scientists. On the contrary, I feel that material science should feel flattered by the backing up by occult science of the new discovery of the human atmosphere. A little later on, material science may also discover the auric colors and announce the same to the wondering world as a new truth. End of chapter. Chapter 2. The Prana Aura. Many writers on the subject of the human aura content themselves with a description of the colors of the mental or emotional aura and omit almost any reference whatsoever to the basic substance or power of the aura. This is like the play of Hamlet, with the character of Hamlet omitted, for unless we understand something concerning the fundamental substance of which the aura is composed, we cannot expect to arrive to a clear understanding of the phenomena which arises from and by reason of the existence of this fundamental substance. We might as well expect a student to understand the principles of color without having been made acquainted with the principles of light. The fundamental substance of which the human aura is composed is none other than that wonderful principle of nature of which one reads so much in all occult writings, which has been called by many names, but which is perhaps best known under the Sanskrit term Prana, but which may be thought of as vital essence, life power, etc. It is not necessary in this book to go into the general consideration of the nature and character of prana. It is sufficient for us to consider it in its manifestation of vital force, life essence, etc. In its broadest sense, prana really is the principle of energy in nature, but in its relation to living forms, it is the vital force which lies at the very basis of manifested life. It exists in all forms of living things, from the most minute microscopic form up to living creatures on higher planes, as much higher than man, as man is higher than the simple microscopic life forms. It permeates them all and renders possible all life activity and functioning. Prana is not the mind or the soul, but is rather the force or energy through which the soul manifests activity and the mind manifests thought. It is the steam that runs the physical and mental machinery of life. It is the substance of the human aura, and the colors of mental states are manifested in that substance, just as the colors of chemical bodies are manifested in the substance of water. But prana is not material substance. It is higher than mere matter, being the underlying substance of energy or force in nature. While it is true, as we have seen, that all auras are composed of the substance of prana, it is likewise true that there is a simple and elementary form of auric substance to which occultists have given the simple name of prana aura, in order to distinguish it from the more complex forms and planes of the human aura. The simplicity of the character of the prana aura causes it to be more readily sensed or perceived than is possible in the case of the more complex phases or forms of the aura. For whereas it is only the more sensitive organism that can distinguish the finer vibrations of the mental and emotional aura, and only the clairvoyant sight which can discern its presence by its colors, almost any person, by a little careful experimenting, may become aware of the presence of the prana aura, not only in the way of feeling it, but in many cases of actually seeing it with the ordinary vision rightly directed. That which is known as the prana aura is, of course, the most simple form or phase of the human aura. It is the form or phase which is more closely bound up with the physical body and is less concerned with the mental states. This fact has caused some writers to speak of it as the health aura or physical aura, both of which terms are fittingly applied, as we shall see, although we prefer the simpler term we have used here, i.e., the prana aura. For the prana aura does show the state of the health of the individual radiating it, and it also really contains physical power and magnetism which may be and is imparted to others. The basic prana aura is practically colorless. That is to say, it is about the color of the clearest water or a very clear diamond. by the clairvoyant vision, it is seen to be streaked or marked by very minute, bristle-like lines radiating outward from the physical body of the individual, in a manner very like the quills upon the fretful porcupine. As Shakespeare puts it, in the case of excellent physical health, these bristle-like streaks are stiff and brittle-looking, whereas in the general health of the person be deficient, these bristle-like radiations seem to be more or less tangled, twisted, or curly, and in some cases present a drooping appearance, and in extreme cases present the appearance of soft, limp fur. It may interest the student to know that minute particles of this prana aura, or vital magnetism, is sloughed off the body in connection with physical exhalations such as scent, etc., and remain in existence for some time after the person has passed from the particular place at which they were cast off. In fact, as all occultists know, it is these particles of the prana aura which serve to give vitality to the scent of living creatures, which enables dogs and other animals to trace up the track of the person or animal for a long time after the person has passed. It is not alone the physical odor, which must be very slight, as you will see upon a moment's consideration. It is really the presence of the particles of the prana aura which enables the dog to distinguish the traces of one person among that of thousands of others. And the feat is as much psychical as physical. Another peculiarity of the prana aura is that it is filled with a multitude of extremely minute, sparkling particles resembling tiny electric sparks, which are in constant motion. These sparks, which are visible to persons of only slightly developed psychic power, impart a vibratory motion to the prana aura, which, under certain conditions, is plainly visible to the average person. This vibratory movement is akin to the movement of heated air arising from a hot stove or from the heated earth on a midsummer day. If the student will close his eyes partially until he peers out from narrowed lids, and then will closely observe some very healthy person sitting in a dim light, he may perceive this undulating, pulsing vibration extending an inch or two from the surface of the body. It requires some little knack to recognize these vibrations, but a little practice will often give one the key, and after the first recognition, the matter becomes easy. Again, in the case of persons of active brains, one may perceive this pulsating prana aura around the head of the person, particularly when he is engaged in concentrated active thought. A little practice will enable almost anyone to perceive faintly the dim outlines of the prana aura around his own fingers and hand, by placing his hand against a black background in a dim light and then gazing at it with narrowed eyelids, squinting if necessary. Under these circumstances, after a little practice, one will be apt to perceive a tiny outlined aura or radiation or halo of pale yellowish light surrounding the hand. By extending the fingers fan shape, you will perceive that each finger is showing its own little outlined prana aura. The stronger the vital force, the plainer will be the perception of the phenomenon. Often the prana aura in these experiments will appear like the semi-luminous radiance surrounding a candle flame or gas light. Under the best conditions, the radiation will assume an almost phosphorescent appearance. Remember, this is simply a matter of trained, ordinary sight, not clairvoyant vision. This prana aura is identical with human magnetism, which is employed in ordinary magnetic healing. That is to say, it is the outer manifestation of the wonderful pranic force. It is felt when you shake hands or otherwise come in close physical contact with a strongly magnetic person. On the other hand, it is what the weakly, human vampire-like persons unconsciously or consciously try to draw off from strong persons, if the latter allow them so to do from want of knowledge of self-protection. Who has not met persons of this kind, who seem to sap one's very life force away from him? Remember then that the prana aura is the aura or radiation of life force, or vital power, which is the steam of your living activity, physical and mental. It is the pouring out of the vital steam which is running your vital machinery. Its presence indicates life, its absence, lifelessness. End of chapter. Before we head out to the next chapter where we're going to learn about the astral colors and their meanings, hit that like button, share this with your friends, and subscribe.